Hello everybody, my name is Mackenzie. I am 22 years old, and by the time you are watching this video, I will be starting my graduate school journey at Hiroshima University. I will be part of the Graduate School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I will be part of the International Peace and Coexistence program. So chances are, if you're watching this video, you have some interest in getting a master's abroad, or maybe specifically in Japan. And I will be sharing everything that I went through to get me here. I want to break this video into three main parts. First, researching universities and programs. Second, the application process. And then third, the cost of the programs. Let's get started. So first, researching universities and programs is a little bit daunting, but I will say that it is 100% worth it. But you need to keep in mind there are some key differences for undergrad. First, because not many people are pursuing masters, or really not many people in the United States are pursuing master's degrees abroad, truly the most important part, researching the universities and programs that you're interested in. I would say as you're starting, you need to keep in mind two things: where you want to go and what you want to study. But with these two things, they will significantly narrow down your choices. So do not be scared, do not be afraid if you're not finding a whole bunch of programs to apply to. So for me, I knew that I was interested in social sciences, so I looked at schools that had social sciences programs, and I knew that I wanted to go somewhere in Asia, so I was looking at programs in both South Korea and Japan. Fortunately, I got accepted into schools in both South Korea and Japan. I'll also be able to share some application components of mine in a later video. I do want to say, at every school, you can find a program for you. Social sciences are the type of programs that I decided to apply to, but if you're interested in business, you can find something. You do not have to be a specific type of student to apply to these programs. They really are interested in having more international students. And I think that, especially as an American, it's not necessarily an opportunity that is been widespread. But I think that, the world can only become a better place from us learning with other people, engaging with other cultures, and experiencing different learning systems. So personally, I'm extremely excited. Another thing, keep in mind the language of instruction. I was first introduced to this idea when I studied abroad in Barcelona, Spain. When I first started to look into these programs, I initially thought that I was going to be in another Spanish-speaking country, but it did not end like that, obviously. I quickly found that I do not have a high enough level of Spanish to pursue graduate school education in South America, and because I had already been to Europe, I kind of wanted to just see a different area of the world, experience a completely different culture. I am equally excited to further my education in Japan. So it's okay if you need to compromise. And I found a lot more programs with the language of instruction in Japan, but I would also say I did find many programs in South Korea as well, even though I'm not gonna end up pursuing a graduate school education in South Korea. And I really do want to say, do not get discouraged if you do not find a ton of programs to apply for. It's definitely not like an undergrad where, you can find 101 colleges to apply for, and, all of them are going to have your exact specific interest. With it being master's programs, they are way more specific. But thankfully, I am making this video to help guide your hand through the process. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Once you have a good list of about 3 to 5 programs that you're interested in, that is when you can move into the second most important step, which is the application process. And it's a little bit of a doozy. It's possible. You can do it. Let's work through it together. Next, I'm going to walk you guys through the application process. So again, once you find 3 to 5 programs that you're interested in, print out the application guidelines. It's a lot of information. Mine was 26 pages in total. The first half of it was entirely written in Japanese, but still, that's 13 pages worth of content that you need to know to make sure that your application is submitted on time and that you have the correct stuff in it. Just some disclaimers. The application process for these programs, I'm not sure how it is for other master's programs in the United States, but it is much shorter. Do not underestimate that fact. It is much, much shorter than what you're accustomed to. My program at Hiroshima University was 12 days. It was 12 days and I had to mail in the application. So really, the first thing that you need to know is when it's due and what you need to submit. So don't be afraid to, print out that application guideline and mark it up, make notes on it so you don't miss anything. I had missed, unfortunately, a bunch of stuff, and thankfully, of course, I was still able to get my application submitted on time, but I definitely could have saved myself so much heartache by being more thorough with these application guidelines. It is more detailed than what you would be used to during undergrad, so don't let that alarm you. With the application periods being so short, you really do need to apply early. Really, two of the biggest things that you need to watch out for because of these short application timelines are your letters of recommendation, and some of these schools will require you to mail in the application. I mailed exactly 3 pieces of paper and it cost me $90. And it's very humbling to have to do that. Again, I am thankful that I've been accepted and I'm sure that it'll all be worth it once I get my program started, but be aware. So with that, you need to make sure that if you are mailing in your application, that you do it really the first or second day that your application opens. It takes about, I think, like 5 to 7 days for some of my applications to get to Japan. And mind you, I've had horror stories where one of them got lost, and for whatever, the Japanese carrier could not find my application documents, and it was the worst experience ever, but my application got there in time and it was all good. It was all chill. Just to circle back with the letters of recommendation, I have unfortunately had one of my applications canceled because my teacher just forgot to upload the recommendation letter. Keep in mind, you may need to be a little bit more on top of your references, so I would really only encourage reaching out to professors that are responsive and that you really feel like won't mess you up and won't not submit your letter of recommendation. Truly, be careful with your letters of recommendation. Get somebody you trust who is responsive, who responds to emails, who checks their emails consistently. Don't be like me. Regarding, you may have to mail in some applications and give yourself time because you do not want your application to arrive post the application deadline because they will not accept it. Thankfully, if you reach out and if it's one of those things where the application gets lost in the mail, they will have some grace, but do not depend on that. Do not quote me on that. Get your application in on time. And with that, I don't like to be a hater. Do not use USPS. Use FedEx or UPS if you are shipping from the United States. From other countries, I'm so sorry. I really don't have the know-how to know, your mailing process, but if you're from the United States, UPS, FedEx only. Next. So I just want to walk through some of the other application components other than the letters of recommendation. You have a research proposal. You need to submit transcripts. Just to share some of the application components that I had to upload for my application. So we have personal history, and that form is given to you by the university. And it's really just detailing some of the things that you did in the past, where you studied during undergrad, where your GPA is, where you live now, just some basic information from the school. And then they're gonna ask for a research proposal. I will say you need to put some work into this research proposal. Don't be afraid to use your university writing center. Truly so helpful. I had a great relationship with this one PhD student who would always read my essays, and she was always very encouraging and challenged my writing. So don't be afraid to use your university writing center. Definitely put some research and some effort into these programs. Because it is not like undergrad, you will definitely be, or I know that I will be in a program that is way more reading and writing based than what I'm accustomed to. So I really wanted to prove to those who would be reading my essays that I was worth the energy, because I'm gonna come to this school and I'm not gonna jack around. I want to study, I will read everything that you want me to read, and I will make the school look good. That was the attitude I had for my research proposal, and I think that if you have that attitude, you'll be perfectly fine. Next, certificate of graduation or expected graduation date. 2 letters of recommendation. They said that one had to be from an advisor, so keep in mind one of your letters of recommendation may need to be from an advisor. And then also you're gonna need a copy of your passport. So if you do not have a passport, I would definitely get on that like yesterday. That was pretty much it for the application process. What took the most time was the research proposal. So utilize the resources that you have. If your parents are, you know, good writers, use them. If your university has a writing center, use that. Very helpful. And the letters of recommendation by far was, it's basically putting your life in somebody else's hands. So get started with your letters of recommendation early. You will thank yourself for it. I almost forgot. A very important part of the application process is the entrance examination. It was a little bit daunting, but when I first applied in fall of 2024, none of the schools required an entrance examination. But for the school that I'll ultimately end up at, I did have to take an entrance examination. And even the entrance examination, there are parts within that as well. So the schools that do ask for an entrance examination as part of their application process, you first have to request a potential advisor to look over your research. But all I did was look at professors that I would like to work under who could help aid my research, and I emailed them, hey, my name is McKenzie, this is my research, would you like to potentially be a potential supervisor? And I have to also say, I got a lot of no's. I got a lot of no's in this process as well. So just be aware that they may ask you for more detailed information regarding your research. Not anything crazy, but things like, why do you want me to be your advisor? Which is a valid question. And some will give you the chance to alter your research a little bit or have more literature to review that you can add into your research. And then that's how you're able to potentially create a working relationship with this professor. But unfortunately, some will just say no, and you have to, you know, just move on. So that is also why, if you need to look for a potential advisor as part of your application, do not at all overlook this part. You need to get this started 2 months before your application. But more about the entrance examination. So once I had reached out to a professor and he approved, he just said, you know, your research is a little bit different from what I would be able to supervise. So he gave me a book to read, and after reading the book, I add more of those points in my research, and thankfully he thought I did a good enough job. So when we did our entrance examination, I thankfully was accepted into the program. So I'm very thankful for him. He's a very kind man. I don't know him that well yet, but I was just thankful that he gave me a chance, because I was a biology major at Howard. So I'm making the jumps from the medical sciences to the social sciences, and every school that I've applied to, I've had to make it very clear why I made that transition. And thankfully, he thought I did a good enough job explaining my research to where he's at least not terrified to have me as a student. My potential advisor let me know that those who do really well in the programs are really just able to answer basic questions about their research, and they can tell that they've rehearsed it. So maybe 2 weeks up until my entrance examination, I was sitting and just rereading my research and saying it out loud to make sure I had all of my thoughts fleshed out. And because of my research, I was able to anticipate some of the questions that they were able to ask. Don't let that part scare you. They're not gonna ask you anything crazy, but they definitely wanna make sure that you have a good handle on the research, because this is something that, you know, they'll basically have to supervise you over for the next 2 years potentially. Also, I forgot to mention, my program is 2 years. You can find many programs that are 1 year, but I opted for a 2-year program. But that pretty much is it for the application process. So now I'm just going to share details about the application timeline. April enrollment for this school was open from October 31st till November 2nd. So not a long amount of time. And then for fall enrollment, the application for my school was open from May 7th, or will be open from May 7th to May 16th. So because you don't have a lot of time, get your research started, I would say 4 months in advance. Get your letters of recommendation solidified 3 months in advance. Reach out to potential advisors also 3 months in advance if you have entrance examination. And then if you are mailing in your application and you are not anywhere near the country that you want to apply for, you need to apply, or you need to mail in that application the day that the application opens, or really before the application opens, because there is a chance that it may not arrive on time and they will cancel your application. And I don't want that for you. So now I'm going to delve into some of the cost of some of the programs that I applied to. First, mailing in the applications. If you have to mail in the application, I'm from Dallas, so from Dallas to Japan, they was around $90 to $100 using FedEx or UPS. So be aware, on top of the application cost, if you have to mail in your application, you're gonna look at probably around another $100, and it may be even more depending on where, but just keep that in mind. And then the application fee, it's a little bit pricier, definitely a little bit pricier than what you're used to. Mine was $300, and I think just about all the schools, except for one was $35, but all of the other schools that I applied to were around $300, and my application fee for Hiroshima University was $300, so keep that in mind as well. And then the flight, the flight is really just gonna be what takes you out. All the flights that I'm looking at are $1,400. There's no way around that. I may in the future try one of those budget airlines, but so far my flights are gonna be $1,400 because I'm flying from the United States to Japan, which is obviously a very long distance to travel, which is perfectly fine, but we're gonna make it through. And then most of the schools that I looked at, their dorm prices were around the same, completely different from the United States in the case that your room and board is not gonna be the bulk of your cost of attendance. It'll really be the tuition. But thankfully, all of the housing options that I look for, rent has been around $150 to $200. So of course that's way different than the $8,000 per semester that you would be paying, you know, anywhere else. And some $8,000 is on the low end, so keep that in mind. The housing and dorming options that you may be looking at probably be way less expensive than what you're looking for, just depending on what the school that you apply to. Now I'm gonna delve into the tuition cost. So my program at Hiroshima University is $3,400, which when I first found that out was so shocking, and I was so thankful for it because I cannot pay out of pocket $10,000, but $3,400 for a year? Not for a semester, for a year. I could do that. So definitely regarding tuition cost, what I see, or the programs of interest that I would have had in the United States versus the ones that were in Japan and South Korea, way more cost effective. So that was just another reason why, you know, I decided to pursue a master's degree abroad. I will say though, the schools that I applied to in South Korea, I applied to a few of the more notable ones. So I applied to Yonsei University in Yonsei, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, I'm not sure. But that tuition was a lot more expensive. I think it was around, don't quote me, but maybe $10,000 for the year. So obviously that's still vastly more expensive than the programs of interest that I saw in Japan, but I'm sure that there were also programs within the 3,400 price range. But with the programs, with the social sciences and humanities programs that I was interested in, I unfortunately just did not find any of those programs, which is perfectly fine because I am happy where I will hopefully end up. But yeah, you can find a program anywhere. You can find a program that offers what you want to study anywhere. And I do believe if you're specific with your research, if you do your due diligence, you can also find a school within your price range. So I hope that this video was informative. This is my first YouTube video, so I may have to re-upload it depending on how much more information is needed. But if you do have any questions, please let me know in the comments and consider subscribing. But thank you, and stay tuned for my next video.